Okay, I'm Jeff Bonner. I'm the CEO of CapCO2 Solutions, and we're enabling green methanol, the next sustainable biofuel, we say. So you might be saying, what the hell is green methanol? As illustrated by the family on the right, methanol is used in thousands of household items, construction materials, industrial chemicals, and even as fuel. We're making it net zero. Right now, pretty much all the methanol in the world is made with fossil fuel. And current methanol is unsustainable. For every ton of methanol you make, approximately 3.7 tons of CO2 are put into the atmosphere. It's just not workable. It must be addressed. So the key to leverage the CO2 the key to make methanol net zero is to leverage the CO2 capture of plants. Plants grow by capturing CO2 from the atmosphere. That CO2 is called bio-CO2. The same amount captured is returned. It is literally net zero. And that bio-CO2 is magical. Ethanol plants are a place that concentrates, purifies, and then throws away huge amounts of bio-CO2. That's our opportunity. We can capture that waste bio-CO2 and turn it into green methanol. The green methanol allows us to make things like diesel fuel replacements and other methanol materials, and it's net zero. It goes, as it's burned or consumed, it goes back into the atmosphere like the CO2 was going to anyway. So who's buying green methanol? Maersk has just built 6 ships that run on green methanol. They signed a large contract to ensure they have enough green methanol to run them. Hexion is a big chemical manufacturing company. They have signed a large contract to ensure they have enough green methanol to support their sustainable resins product line. Even John Deere, the farm equipment manufacturing company, has invested in a company that builds engines that run on green methanol. Okay, so CapCO2 is going to be using the wasted bio-CO2 from ethanol plants. There are 200 of those plants in North America. Each plant is wasting 150,000 tons per year of bio-CO2. That's a potential of $110 million of new revenue for each of those plants. We're currently in conversations with the world's largest bio-CO2 emitter, that's POET, which runs 33 of those ethanol plants. So that would be an ideal location for our first pilot plant. And about me. So why am I doing this? I'm passionate about building solutions to solve complex problems that, and I've turned that passion to the climate crisis. I've built big, complicated systems requiring diverse stakeholders to work together. So that communication is a key part of what I'm bringing. I'm focusing my expertise on the technical and real-world components necessary for a profitable and sustainable green methanol. I've assembled a great, like a dream green methanol team. Nicola.
1 minute warning.
Nicola is effective at building chemical industry partnerships. Michael is a father of regenerative and organic agriculture and deeply wired into the ethanol ecosystem. Siobhan is an agricultural engineer, great at the technical parts and actually also the community parts. And Jeff Waugh is an expert at biofuel logistics. So we're asking for $500,000 for a 1-year project to build a pilot plant. The mechanics of that are a site, signing up and confirming the off-taker, picking the right equipment among the various options, and arranging the financing. So we're CapCO2 Solutions. We're turning waste bio-CO2 into valuable green methanol, and I'm open for questions.
And you hit that in 5 minutes. Wow, that is very impressive. I'm going to bring our panelists back in. I'm sure they've got questions. I know I absolutely do as well. While I'm bringing them back in, my first question, and that's something I didn't see in the deck, is how are you guys converting bio CO2 into ethanol? And then I'll hand things over to the other investors once you clarify that.
Yeah, the basic thing we can leverage here is the existing methanol equipment, which mostly runs on fossil fuel, can in theory be easily adapted for the green methanol process. All the manufacturers insist that their equipment will be perfect. They want to work with us to prove out that their equipment can be adapted as easily as they say. So that's our plan, is to pick one of them based on the site and other details.
I meant more, how are you converting the bio CO2 into green methanol? Sorry.
Well, okay. So you want me to go into more detail on the technical process involved?
Yeah, just in terms of how that works.
Okay. So to make green methanol, you have to have bio CO2, which I've talked about. You also need to have green hydrogen. So you need renewable power that will create green hydrogen on site, or a source of it. And then you feed that into the methanol equipment, and that produces green methanol. Does that give you enough detail?
I think so, at least for now, but I just want to hand things over first to some of the other investors. I think Liliia is probably the place to start.
I could go on for a long time. It's just I'm not sure the right level of detail for this group. So.
No, a question related to what Matt just asked. So one of the inputs is green hydrogen. But how would this fuel compete with hydrogen itself as a use case in marine, in commercial vessels? So from a use case perspective, what's the advantage of using methanol as opposed to hydrogen as a fuel?
Yeah, hydrogen is hard to manage and deal with, as I'm sure you well know. You need to build completely new engines. You need to build new infrastructure. Green methanol can be used in diesel engines with minor modifications. We've been told for $3,000, you could take a large transport truck and turn it into a dual fuel green methanol diesel engine. And so it's drop-in decarbonization. And so, over the long term, how green hydrogen is going to play out, and will it really displace everything else? I don't know. But in the short term, you'll definitely need the green methanol as the transitional fuel at the least. And then you have the whole chemical manufacturing supply chain, which is heavily dependent on methanol. And that's a place green hydrogen is just not going to handle that problem.
Gotcha. If I can just follow up on this. So if I understand right, there should be a renewables installation, right, to generate green hydrogen. And then also hydrogen goes as a feedstock into the production process. So in terms of cost, how for end users, how would that compare to the fuel they currently use? Would that be that cost, same amount of money, or?
It would be comparable. What we've worked out is it would be comparable to diesel fuel, maybe a little cheaper than diesel fuel. It also has a little less mileage per gallon than diesel fuel. So I think that would net out fine. And again, it's very hard to project out the economics of how it's really going to play out with if there was an active green hydrogen cluster. This would be an ideal place to put a green methanol plant, because you could convert some of what that green hydrogen is making available. You could convert it to something that could be transported easily off the site, and also could support chemical manufacturing on that site. So we see the green methanol ecosystem will be huge. For now, drop-in replacement for diesel fuel is the most obvious immediate need.
Gotcha. Thanks, Jeff.
And Thore or Jonas, do you have any questions for Jeff?
what's your guys' distribution network at the end? So who would you ideally sell this to?
So I don't know who we'd ideally sell it to. The initial plan, there's two initial plans. There's local chemical manufacturing companies, and by local, I mean within a few hours drive, so you could send a tanker truck to them economically. There are also corn farmers who use a huge amount of diesel fuel and have lots of diesel-driven equipment. So both of those are viable options. We really have to get into the details, and with the recent Inflation Reduction Act, there's some incentives for the green methanol as a replacement fuel. So all that has to be worked out in detail. And, again, we're still guessing about what's the right choice. But for the pilot plant, we'll be selling it one of those two ways.
And with the current conditions, with like fuel prices are super high at the moment, right? Would you have like a significant advantage in comparison to normal diesel fuel right now?
We would have a slight advantage. And again, the other thing I need to be careful about here is, someone like Maersk is paying a lot of money for green methanol right now because they really need it for their sustainability plan. So it's really hard to predict. Again, I just want to be honest with you, Thore. It's really hard to predict how are those economics going to play out in the next 2-3 years. Over the long term, it'll be very competitive. But in the immediate term, there's all kinds of economic forces that could push the number really high.
Thank you.
But if it pushes the number really high, that's good for us. Then we have people, bidding to get the fuel. So that's not a problem either, really.
Perfect.
Jeff, from my side, thanks for the presentation. I would have a question regarding your business model. I've seen on your website that you have like a kind of on-site assessment of the ethanol kind of plant, but you're also going more towards like a marketplace play. Could you elaborate a bit further? What's your business case and also how you want to scale this in the next couple of years?
Very good. As you probably noticed, my background is in computer science. So the original plan here is we were going to build a two-sided marketplace for green methanol and other biofuels. And then we found out there's not enough of a market there to have a marketplace yet. It's too much of a scattered, preliminary market. So we figured, okay, well, let's build some sites, particularly at a place in the US where there's a huge wastage of bio-CO2. It's just a really hot opportunity because there's so much pure bio-CO2 in one place. Over time, we want to package up that. Matt suggested a franchise model, which sounds right. So we'll have a way to quickly build green methanol plants. We won't be the builder per se. We'll encourage local sites to build their own, and then we'll be managing the market of that. So that's the big picture plan. But again, we're early on. I'm not ready to, over time, that'll be the business model. In the short term, we think we can very profitably build these plants and get enough of them up and running that we could move on to a more bigger marketplace view of the whole thing.
And a follow-up question in terms of manufacturing, do you want to outsource this? Are you working with third parties together, or is the plan to actually build this in-house?
Well, we will definitely be working with methanol equipment makers. Everyone from Air Liquide, Pentair, those are two we've had fairly in-depth conversations with. The question is who do we really want to work with, and whose equipment can best be quickly adapted to green methanol versus its current fossil orientation. And so we'll be making that decision once we have a site pinned down. Then we'll know what's going to work best for that site.